Sometimes love hides behind rags and dust, and those who look beyond appearances discover gold where others see mud. The African sun was sinking slowly behind the hills of Nkwala village, painting the sky in deep orange and gold. The air smelled of roasted maize and wet earth. Children's laughter echoed through the narrow paths as women with colorful wrappers balanced baskets on their heads, hurrying home before darkness covered the land. But not everyone hurried home. Down by the riverbank, where the ancient baobab tree stood tall like a silent guardian, sat a man no one noticed anymore, a beggar named Obinna. His shirt was torn at the shoulders, his slippers mismatched, and his bowl beside him held only dust and 2 lonely coins. The villagers had long stopped paying him attention. To them, he was just another broken man, a reminder of failure and misfortune. Yet, despite the way life had treated him, there was something different about him. His eyes, they weren't the eyes of a broken soul. They carried depth, calm, and an unexplainable sorrow, the kind that comes from seeing too much of the world. That evening, as the last light shimmered over the water, a young woman walked down the path with a gourd in her hand. Her name was Aisha, the daughter of the village tailor. Her beauty wasn't the kind that shouted, it was quiet, the kind that lived in her smile and the warmth in her eyes. She hummed softly as she bent to fill her gourd, but the moment she noticed the man by the tree, her song faded. He was coughing, quietly but painfully. Aisha hesitated. She had seen him before, everyone had, but no one ever dared to approach him. Still, something in her heart whispered, go. She walked closer, the sand soft under her feet. You should drink some water, she said softly, holding out the gourd. Obinna looked up, startled. You shouldn't be near me, he said, his voice hoarse. People will talk. Aisha smiled faintly. Let them talk. You look thirsty. He hesitated, eyes full of disbelief. Slowly, he reached out and took the gourd, drinking like a man who hadn't tasted kindness in years. Thank you, he whispered, avoiding her gaze. Don't thank me, she said gently. Water is free. But to Obinna, that water wasn't free, it was priceless. It was the first act of care he'd received since he arrived in the village. That day began something no one expected. Each evening after that, Aisha found a reason to pass by the river. Sometimes she brought him bread, sometimes leftover yam porridge from her mother's pot. Every time, she'd sit for a few minutes, asking him about his day. At first, he said little. But with time, he began to talk, about the stars, about the way the world changes when people stop caring, about the strange peace that lives in silence. His voice was deep, full of wisdom that didn't belong to a man who looked like a beggar. And Aisha began to notice things. The way he spoke, careful, educated. The way he used words, like someone who once belonged to a world beyond this dusty village. It made her curious. One evening, she asked, were you always here, Obinna? He smiled faintly. No one is ever always where they end up. I came here to find something. What? He looked at her, and for the first time, she saw pain behind his calmness. Myself, he said. But in a village like Nkwala, secrets never stay secret for long. By the 3rd week, people had started whispering. Women at the market snickered when Aisha passed. Look at her, one said. Spending her time feeding that beggar. Maybe she wants to marry him, another laughed. Even her best friend, Zuri, warned her. Aisha, people are talking. You'll ruin your name. Aisha's answer was simple. Let them talk. Kindness isn't a crime. As she was serving him some food under the baobab tree, her father appeared suddenly, his voice sharp like a whip. Aisha, he shouted. What are you doing with this man? She froze, the bowl still in her hand. Baba, he's hungry. I was just. Enough, her father thundered. You shame this family by being seen with him. Do you want people to think we live off the street? Obinna tried to speak, but her father glared at him. And you, beggar, stay away from my daughter. That night, Aisha cried in silence. Her father's words cut deep, but she couldn't erase the face of the man who looked at her with quiet gratitude every time she came. So the next morning, she went back, secretly. But this time, the spot under the baobab tree was empty. His bowl was gone. The dust carried only his footprints. Panic rose in her chest. Had he left because of her father? Was he hurt? She waited until the stars came out, but he never showed. Finally, as she turned to leave, she heard a voice behind her. Aisha. She spun around. It was him. But something about him was different. His clothes were clean, his beard trimmed. His posture tall, almost noble. Obinna, she whispered. He nodded. Forgive me for disappearing. I had to see if kindness like yours still existed in this world. Her heart raced. What do you mean? He reached into his satchel and pulled out a folded cloth, embroidered with golden thread, a royal insignia. It shimmered faintly even under the dim moonlight. Keep this, he said, placing it in her hands. When the time is right, you'll understand. Before she could ask another word, he stepped back into the shadows and disappeared. That night, Aisha lay awake, the cloth pressed against her chest. Who was he? Why did he look so different? And what secret was he hiding beneath those calm eyes? Her heart told her this was just the beginning. When the one you care for disappears without a trace, sometimes the heart refuses to accept what the eyes can't find. Before going forward to the story, please like and subscribe the African Heat Tales. Let's start the story. 3 days passed, and Obinna didn't return. Every sunset, Aisha walked to the baobab tree, clutching that golden embroidered cloth like a sacred charm. Each time she arrived, the space felt emptier, the silence heavier. The river still flowed, the leaves still whispered in the wind, but the spot where he sat now felt like a grave of memory. Villagers noticed her restlessness. The whispers grew sharper. Her eyes are always looking for that beggar, one woman murmured at the well. She's bewitched, another added. Love can make even wise women foolish. Aisha ignored them. She wasn't sure what it was, love, pity, or curiosity, but she knew deep inside that Obinna was no ordinary man. There was dignity in his silence, weight in his words. He carried himself like someone who'd once commanded respect, but lost it all. That thought haunted her more than gossip. One morning, unable to bear the uncertainty, Aisha went to the edge of the village, where the old road curved into the hills. She remembered him saying he came to Nkwala to find himself. Maybe that's where he'd gone. The road was long and dusty. Her sandals slipped on stones, her dress clung to her legs from the heat. Birds cried from the trees, and now and then, she'd ask passing traders if they'd seen a tall man with calm eyes and quiet voice. Most shook their heads. One old woman finally said, I saw a man like that heading toward Mbale town, 3 suns ago. He paid for a ride with real silver. Aisha's heart skipped. Silver? A beggar with silver? That night, as she lay awake on her mat, she held the golden cloth under the moonlight. Its embroidery caught the faint glow and shimmered like fireflies. The royal crest embroidered on it, 2 lions facing each other, didn't belong to any family in Nkwala. It was something greater. And suddenly, she remembered something her late grandmother used to say. In Mbale lives the house of the 2 lions, a family with power, wealth, and pride older than kings. Could it be? The next morning, she made a decision that would change everything. She wrapped the cloth carefully, tucked it into her bag, and told her mother she was visiting her cousin in the next village. Then, without looking back, she started walking toward Mbale. The sun blazed high, but determination burned hotter. Along the way, she shared rides with traders and carried water for strangers in exchange for food. At dusk, she reached the gates of the bustling town. Mbale was nothing like quiet Nkwala. Markets stretched endlessly. Men wore tailored coats. Women carried parasols instead of baskets. And everywhere she turned, she saw the emblem, 2 lions facing each other, carved on shops, gates, and even the guards' shields. Her heart pounded. It's the same symbol. But she didn't know where to begin. Who would listen to a village girl talking about a man who once begged by a river? As she wandered through the streets, her eyes caught a familiar figure across the market, tall, confident, in a white linen shirt. For a moment, her breath stopped. It can't be. Obinna, she whispered. The man turned slightly, and her world froze. It was him. He was surrounded by men in uniforms, all addressing him as, Sir. He gave calm instructions, his voice steady, his posture proud. The beggar she once fed was now commanding guards like a prince. Aisha's knees weakened. She hid behind a cart, heart racing so fast she could barely breathe. She watched as he entered a grand building adorned with golden carvings of the same lions from the cloth. It wasn't just any house, it was a palace. Her mind reeled. Was he pretending all along? Why would someone like him beg in a poor village? Why did he hide who he truly was? She waited till nightfall, her eyes fixed on the building. At last, as the torches dimmed and the streets quieted, she gathered her courage and approached the palace gates. 2 guards stopped her immediately. State your business, one barked. I came to see Obinna, she said, her voice trembling. He'll know me. The guards exchanged looks. His name is Prince Obinna Nwachukwu, son of the late chief of Mbale. You must be mistaken. Her lips parted. Prince? Yes, the guard said. Our prince was presumed dead 5 years ago in the Northern War. But he returned last moon, alive, though changed. You say you know him? She nodded weakly, unable to form words. The guard chuckled softly. Then you've met a man who hides his crown beneath dust. That night, she stood by the palace wall, staring at the high windows where flickering lights glowed. Her mind raced with questions, but one truth pierced her heart the most: he hadn't told her who he was. He'd let her believe he was nothing. Tears welled in her eyes. Why didn't you trust me? Then she remembered his last words. When the time is right, you'll understand. Maybe this was that time. She turned and walked back toward the inn where she was staying, her heart torn between awe and betrayal. She wanted to confront him, to demand an answer. But something told her, the truth was bigger than she imagined. And the storm was just about to break. Because love that begins in the dust often ends in the storm. Sometimes the people who look broken are only hiding from a world that once broke them first. The morning sun bathed the town of Beggar in gold. Merchants shouted prices, children chased each other in the dusty streets, and guards stood tall at the palace gates. But Aisha didn't see any of it. Her mind was still trapped in the moment she had seen him, Prince Obina. She replayed it again and again. His confident walk, the way the guards bowed, the insignia glinting on his chest, the same symbol from the cloth he'd given her. Her chest ached with a strange mix of pride and pain. She wanted to be happy that he was alive, noble, respected, but her heart whispered betrayal. He lied to me. He let me care for him when he had everything. Still, something didn't add up. If he was a prince, why live like a beggar? That question burned so fiercely that Aisha couldn't leave Beggar without answer. That evening, she wrapped her shawl tight and walked toward the palace once more. The guards were busy shifting crates of goods. She noticed a small gate where servants carried water. Without a second thought, she slipped inside, blending among the workers. The halls glowed with oil lamps and carved pillars. The air smelled of frankincense and old secrets. She walked quietly until she reached the inner courtyard, and froze. Obina was there. He stood alone beneath a mango tree, wearing a dark robe, his back to her. The man who once sat by the riverbank, coughing and weak, now looked like a figure from a storybook. Powerful yet distant. Her heart pounded. She took a breath. Obina. He turned, startled. For a moment, silence hung between them. His eyes softened when he saw her. Aisha, you came. Her lips trembled. You lied to me. He sighed, the weight of his truth heavy in his voice. I didn't lie. I just couldn't tell you. Couldn't. Or wouldn't? She demanded, stepping closer. You let me think you were starving. You let me feed you. Do you know what people said about me? I know, he said quietly. And that's why I couldn't tell you. Why? She pressed, her eyes glistening. Why hide who you are? Obina looked away, his jaw tightening. Because I wanted to see the world without my name, without my crown. To see if kindness still exists beyond gold and titles. She frowned, still hurt. And I was your test. No, he said quickly, stepping closer. You were my answer. Her breath caught. He continued, his tone low and sincere. 5 years ago, I was sent to war to defend Beggar's borders. We were betrayed by our own allies. I watched my soldiers fall. When I returned, my father was dead, and my uncle had seized the throne. Everyone believed I had died too. I escaped into the wilderness with nothing but this. He lifted his wrist, showing a charm engraved with the 2 lions, and a name no one could hear. His eyes grew distant. I wandered from town to town, seeing how greed had poisoned men's hearts. I wanted to know if I still belonged in a world that had forgotten compassion. Aisha's anger softened, replaced by sorrow. She saw it now, the pain behind his silence, the loneliness behind his calm. He wasn't testing her out of arrogance. He was searching for something real. I found that kindness in you, Aisha, he whispered. You gave water to a stranger. You saw a man, not his rags. You reminded me that humanity still breathes. Her tears slipped quietly. You could have told me. I couldn't risk it, he said. If my uncle learned I was alive, he would kill anyone close to me. Even you. The courtyard went still. For a moment, neither spoke. The night hummed softly around them, filled with the scent of mango blossom. Finally, Aisha said, and now? What happens now? Obina's face darkened. Now, the truth must come out. But it won't be easy. My uncle, he rules with fear. My return threatens everything he's built. He looked at her, eyes fierce with purpose. Tomorrow, I'll reveal myself to the council. I'll reclaim what was stolen. But I can't do it alone. Her brow furrowed. What can I do? I'm just a tailor's daughter. He smiled faintly. The one thing my uncle cannot fight, the voice of the people. You have their trust, Aisha. The villagers love you for your heart. I need them to stand with me. When the truth breaks, I want them to know who I really am, and who stood by me when I was nothing. Her chest swelled with both fear and pride. You're asking me to go back, and tell them? He nodded. Yes, tell them the beggar by the river was not a beggar. Tell them kindness restored a fallen prince. As the moon climbed high, they stood in silence. Two souls, once divided by rags and royalty, now bound by truth. Aisha reached out, brushing his hand gently. You'll be careful. He smiled softly. I've survived worse. But promise me this, if anything happens, keep the cloth I gave you. It's proof of who I am. She nodded, holding back tears. I'll never let it go. Then he leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. You changed my life, Aisha. Whatever tomorrow brings, remember that. And just like before, he stepped away, swallowed again by shadows, leaving her under the stars with a heart that no longer feared the truth, but what that truth might cost. The truth is not always believed, especially when spoken by the poor. The next morning, the air in Bale was thick with whispers. The sun had barely risen when Aisha began her walk back to the village. Her heart raced with every step, torn between hope and fear. She held the small cloth with the royal emblem close to her chest, Obina's token, proof of everything. As she approached her home, she saw familiar faces, women fetching water, elders sitting under the baobab tree, children playing near the well. Everything looked the same, yet nothing felt the same. Look, it's Aisha, one woman whispered to another. She's back. Maybe she finally realized that Beggar was using her, another said, her voice dripping with mockery. Aisha swallowed her pain. She wanted to scream, you're wrong, but instead she lifted her chin and kept walking. Her mother stood by the door, arms folded, her eyes weary. Aisha, she said softly, where have you been? People are talking again. I went to find the truth, Aisha replied, trying to steady her voice. The truth? Her mother frowned. About what? Aisha held out the cloth. The golden lions shimmered faintly in the sunlight. About him. The man everyone called a beggar. Her mother blinked in confusion. What do you mean? Aisha took a deep breath. He isn't who we thought he was, Mama. His name is Obina. Prince Obina of Mbale. Gasps came from nearby women who had gathered to listen. Prince Obina. The same prince who died in the war, one asked. Yes, Aisha said firmly. He's alive. I met him. He told me everything, how he lost his home, his army, his kingdom. How he lived among us to see who still had kindness left in their hearts. A murmur swept through the crowd. Some looked stunned. Others scoffed. Prince? That beggar? Nonsense, cried one man. Why would a prince sleep under a bridge? Because he wanted to see the truth, Aisha shot back. Her words echoed. For a moment, there was silence. Then laughter. Harsh, cruel laughter. You expect us to believe you, Aisha? The girl who fed a beggar. She's lost her mind. Maybe he promised her gold, and now she's spinning tales. Each word stabbed her heart. Tears burned her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She clenched the cloth in her hand like a shield. I know what I saw, she whispered. And soon, you'll all see it too. But as she turned to leave, one voice called out, deep and sharp. It was Chief Okoro, the village elder, known for his authority and pride. Enough, he said. Aisha, if what you say is true, bring him here. Let us see this so-called prince with our own eyes. Until then, you bring shame to your family with lies. The crowd murmured in agreement. Aisha looked at the chief, trembling but defiant. He will come, she said. And when he does, you'll all remember this day. Chief Okoro narrowed his eyes. We'll see, girl. We'll see. That night, Aisha sat alone outside her hut, staring at the stars. Her mother came to sit beside her quietly. Child, her mother said gently, I want to believe you. I truly do. But you must understand, people fear what they can't see. If this man is who you say he is, then you've stepped into a storm bigger than both of us. Aisha nodded. I know, Mama. But I can't turn back now. He trusted me. I have to help him. Her mother sighed and placed a hand on her shoulder. Then may the ancestors watch over you. A faint breeze rustled the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a drumbeat echoed, slow and haunting. It was the signal that the council of elders was gathering at dawn. The same meeting Obinna had promised to attend. Aisha's pulse quickened. Tomorrow, everything would change. The next day, the village square was packed. Traders, farmers, children, everyone came. Even the chief stood proudly, surrounded by guards. The air buzzed with tension and curiosity. Aisha stood near the front, holding the cloth close. Her heart pounded as she searched the horizon. Minutes stretched into hours. The crowd began to whisper again. See. He's not coming. She made it all up. Poor girl, lost her senses over a beggar. Her fingers tightened around the cloth. He promised he'd come, he will. Suddenly, the murmurs stopped. A shadow moved at the edge of the crowd. A man in a dark robe, flanked by 2 soldiers, walked slowly toward them. His steps were firm, his gaze unbroken. The sun caught the golden emblem on his chest, 2 lions facing each other. Gasps rippled through the crowd. It's him, someone whispered. The same eyes, the same mark. Prince Obinna. Chief Okoro's expression faltered. Impossible, he muttered. He died years ago. But when Obinna stopped in front of the chief and bowed slightly, the truth became undeniable. His voice rang clear and commanding. I am Obinna, son of King Juba. The rightful heir to the throne of Mbale. The crowd erupted in chaos, disbelief, shock, awe. Women covered their mouths. Men dropped to their knees. Children stared in wide-eyed wonder. Aisha's breath caught as his eyes found hers. A small smile touched his lips, proud, grateful, alive. Then Obinna turned to the people. Among you lived a woman who gave water to a stranger when no one else would. When I was hungry, she shared her food. When I was forgotten, she saw me. Her name is Aisha, and today, I stand before you because of her kindness. The people looked at her in astonishment. Aisha's knees went weak. Tears spilled freely as the same villagers who mocked her now bowed their heads in shame. Let this be a lesson, Obinna continued, his voice rising. A crown does not make a man noble. A pure heart does. And if kindness can restore a fallen prince, imagine what it can do for a broken world. As the crowd cheered, Aisha finally felt her soul exhale. All the pain, the mockery, the loneliness, washed away in that single moment of truth. She had believed when no one else did. And the world had just witnessed what belief could do. The drums echoed across Mbale like thunder rolling over the hills. The once forgotten beggar now stood tall in the village square, wearing the royal emblem that gleamed under the morning sun. The crowd bowed before him, some out of awe, others out of guilt. But Obinna didn't smile. His eyes carried years of pain and patience. He turned slowly, scanning the faces before him. Where were you, he said softly, when I had nothing? When I begged for food, when I shivered under your roofs? No one answered. Heads hung low. He continued, the same man you called worthless has returned, not to seek revenge, but to remind you what humanity means. His words were calm, but they cut deeper than any blade. Obinna motioned toward Aisha. Come forward, he said. A hush fell over the crowd as she stepped closer, her hands trembling. You were the only one who saw the man beneath the dirt, Obinna said. When the world turned away, you looked closer. That is true royalty of heart. He reached into his robe and pulled out a golden pendant shaped like 2 lions, the royal crest of Mbale. He placed it around her neck. From the edge of the crowd, women gasped. Is he marrying her? One whispered. Impossible. A prince and a village girl, another scoffed. Obinna smiled faintly. Titles mean nothing without compassion. Aisha, from this day forward, you are not just a villager. You are a symbol, a reminder to every heart in Mbale that kindness can change destiny. Tears filled her eyes. I never wanted anything, Obinna, she whispered. Just for people to see who you truly are. And they finally do, he said softly. But as the crowd celebrated, a sudden shout broke through the cheers. Stop this madness. It was Chief Okoro, his voice trembling with anger and fear. You think we'll believe this charade? How do we know you're truly the prince and not a clever thief wearing stolen gold? Gasps rippled through the people again. Obinna turned, his gaze steady. You doubt your own bloodline, Chief Okoro? The chief froze. What? Obinna stepped closer. I know who you are. You were one of my father's council members. You betrayed the throne the night my family was attacked. You took the soldiers' gold and fled to this village. And now, you hide behind power built on lies. The chief's face turned pale. That's not true. Obinna lifted his sleeve, revealing a scar on his wrist, a mark his father's council once shared. This is the seal of the royal oath, he said. You swore it with me as a child. The crowd gasped again. Villagers began whispering, pointing at Okoro. Is it true? Did he betray the king? All these years, he fooled us. Okoro's knees weakened. Please, mercy, he stammered. Obinna's voice dropped low, calm but firm. I am not here for revenge. The ancestors will judge your heart. But your rule over these people ends today. The guards stepped forward, taking the chief away. And in that moment, justice returned to Mbale, not through violence, but through truth. Weeks passed, and the story of the beggar prince and the kind woman spread across the land. Obinna rebuilt the old palace, not as a fortress of gold, but as a home for the forgotten. He created schools, shelters, and marketplaces where no one would go hungry again. And Aisha? She became his advisor, his voice of compassion. Whenever people came with pride or greed, Obinna would say, ask Aisha what kindness would do. The villagers who once mocked her now sought her wisdom. Children followed her through the streets, singing songs of the woman who fed a stranger and found a king. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Obinna stood beside Aisha on the palace balcony. The sky blazed in gold and crimson. You changed everything, he said quietly. She smiled. No. We did. You never stopped believing, even when the world turned its back. He looked at her, the same woman who once shared bread with a beggar, and smiled softly. Maybe that's what love really is. Seeing the crown even when it's buried in dust. As the camera fades over the golden horizon of Mbale, the narrator's voice grows warm and reflective. Sometimes, the greatest hearts are hidden behind the roughest faces. The richest souls wear no jewels. Aisha taught us that love sees beyond what eyes can measure. And Obinna proved that kindness can awaken kings from the ashes. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit that like button. Share this story to remind others that kindness never goes unnoticed. And subscribe for more powerful stories every day. Where are you watching from? Comment your country below. I'd love to see how far Aisha and